Yo, dude. My name's Danny Giucci, and today I'm going to be teaching you about a super amazing writing tool that I refer to as the one page. I took an hour of my time yesterday evening and I filled out everything that's on this one page here. You can see the date that I created this, the people, the Ducci, that's me, genre. We're going to be writing an example story today that's going to be a sci-fi cosmic horror dark comedy. The format's going to be short film and YouTube tutorial. What are my title ideas? What's Eating Kirby and Family of One. I came up with these title ideas after filling out my one page, but you'll see why in a second. And then for tags, I just tagged in the one page, dark comedy, cosmic horror, sci-fi, YouTube writing tutorial. You know the rest. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. This is it. This is my one page. I'm going to go over things really fast and loose with this one page, just so that you understand the premise of these things. Then we'll get into the examples of this sci-fi dark comedy short story that I wrote for you guys, just to show you how to use this document. There's 4 key things that I figure out first whenever I'm starting a one page. I'll use these one pages whenever I have an idea and I want to see if this idea is worth exploring. If you think that you have a good idea and you can't easily fill out this one page and you're not generating a bunch of questions or ideas or intrigue for yourself while you're writing this thing out, it might not be that good of an idea, or maybe it just needs a little bit more workshopping and it's worth sharing with somebody else to see where you can get it to go. The first 4 things that I figure out on my one page are the premise, the thematic question, the protagonist arcs, and the synopsis. After I figure out those 4 things, I have these 5 other questions that I figure out and a notes section, but we're going to get to those. The premise is your hook to your story. It's 1 or 2 sentences that hook somebody piquing their interest in this project. This would be your elevator pitch that you would give to somebody if you had a very brief period of time to explain it to somebody that maybe would be able to fund a project for you. These are the 2 sentences that would sell it. For our example here, I wrote, amidst a countryside search, 3 children find an adorable alien that federal agents are on the hunt for. What started as an exciting discovery takes a horrific turn when one of the kids gets eaten by the alien, who begins to exhibit similar traits and abilities to the consumed child. Whether that piqued your interest or not, we're going to use this exact story idea for the rest of this sheet just as an example, and you'll see how all these things work off of each other and build, and you can use this to generate your own ideas. Next is thematic question. It's a moral dilemma with no definitive answer. The 3 thematic questions that I came up with just following the same example from the premise here is, can nurture be stronger than nature? At what point should we accept the loss of a loved one? If children are innocent, who is responsible for their actions? The reason that I go with a thematic question rather than just writing a theme is because all the major characters in your story should answer these questions differently. It'll create really interesting friction and conflict between these characters because they can't agree on how to answer these questions. And it also helps you generate ideas in your story rather than just starting with an arbitrary theme like the theme of the story is alien invasions. Sure, that could be an interesting story, but posing these thematic questions ends up putting you in a situation where you're thinking about it from character perspective, and the character-driven story, in my opinion, is always a significantly more meaningful story. Next, we're going to jump to the protagonist's arc. I'll give 2 examples here using my character arc system. First example we're going to go through is the boy who was eaten by the alien. Let's name him Kirby. And this is my character arc system. Trauma, misbelief, desire, need, truth. My very first video on my channel here goes over this. I'm probably going to remake it one day because, let's face it, it's pretty rough. But let me give you a quick rundown of what that is right now. First, your character's trauma should be something that happened in their past that informs the character's misbelief. Something that they believe to be true that may not necessarily be true, but causes friction if somebody were to question it for them. Your character's misbelief should then inform their desire, the thing that they think will fix their trauma. The thing that actually will fix their trauma is their need. But before they can receive their need, they have to accept their truth. That's just a really simplified version of explaining this framework, but you can watch my first video to learn a little bit more in depth if you want to get a better idea with more examples. So, the story from Kirby's perspective. Let's say Kirby's trauma was that he was neglected by his emotionally unavailable parents during his formative years. This will inform the misbelief for Kirby as a character, where he believes that he will be praised by his folks if he manages to make first contact with the alien that's on the loose. His desire is to befriend the extraterrestrial, earning the adoration of his neglectful parents. What Kirby needs to do is to stay away from the dangerous cosmic invader and accept that his parents love him no matter what. But the truth and the end of Kirby's character arc is that the alien has fused with Kirby, their DNA now inseparable, making the young beings one forever. You can see how throughout a story that could become a really dramatic and interesting way to change this character. Now let's look at the story from the perspective of Kirby's mother. Let's name her Deborah. Deborah's trauma is an accidental pregnancy that left Deborah becoming an unprepared mother in her teenage years. Her misbelief is she must prioritize work over everything else to provide for her son and her failing family. Her desire is to secure a promotion within the federal agency that she works for by being the first to find and capture the alien. Her need is to spend more time with her family, prioritizing quality time with her son and stopping him from acting out. And the truth, by the end of the story, is that her son would have never become the cosmic creature he is now had she only focused more time on him rather than focusing it on her work. You can see how these two ideas would really make an interesting character dynamic between the son and the mother, and how it would play out throughout the story. Let's jump into the synopsis to explore this idea a little bit more. A synopsis is a simple, spoiler-heavy description from start to finish. You're not trying to romanticize this idea, you're just trying to throw out something very quick and simple so that you understand if you want to continue to pursue this idea or not. That's the purpose of this one sheet, and that's what it's going to give you. And when you're filling out this synopsis, you might come up with a ton of ideas and a ton of questions for yourself as you're writing it. Hell, you might come up with things that you never even thought were going to be included in this idea, but that you start to really love. And when you chase those lines of thought, you'll end up generating something really unique and special sometimes. If you find yourself asking any sort of questions or coming up with new ideas while you're filling out the synopsis, or any other section in this sheet, for example, that's why I've included the notes section at the very bottom. You can always drop down there and add in a bullet and just type out your idea really quickly, just so you don't lose that spark of inspiration. But let's go over this synopsis real quick. Jump to this time point though if you don't want to hear my narration, if you prefer to read it yourself. Kirby and his two friends go looking for an alien on the loose in the countryside of their rural home. The two friends think it's a bad idea. Kirby assures them they won't get into trouble though because his mother works for the same agency that's looking for the alien. Deborah is too focused on work and avoiding her ex-husband to think of anything other than finding the alien on the loose. Certain a promotion will fix all of her problems, she fails to keep track of her son, Kirby. The kids find an adorable and harmless alien before anyone else. Upon getting too comfortable with it, Kirby is eaten by the creature, prompting his two friends to tell Deborah of the alien's whereabouts. Upon confronting the alien, Deborah stops herself from killing the creature when she notices that it has the same mannerisms of her son. She then decides to coax the creature into hiding at her home, learning more about Kirby than she ever did before he was consumed. She proceeds in failing to separate the two after an all-nighter of trying. Deborah is faced with a harsh truth when her recently divorced ex shows up to take Kirby for a court-ordered weekend visitation. The two argue when the deadbeat father insists to see his son despite Deborah's attempts to turn him away. Things get far worse when federal agents show up after learning to track a bacteria that's left behind by the alien. The agents follow a trail of the bacteria all the way from the original crash site to Deborah's home. A strange and equally horrifying showdown is had between the family and the agents storming the countryside home trying to take Kirby away, resulting in the alien consuming both Deborah and Kirby's father. The combined skills and knowledge of all three manage to save the, now, family of one from the dire situation. The aberrant cosmic being that consumed the family is able to escape from the agency who pursues it, for now. That synopsis is completely unhinged, but that's the idea that I came up with after filling out the premise, the thematic questions, and those two different character arcs that I explained earlier. I could take this idea as is right now and start writing a script for a short film, or I could turn it into a novella, or maybe even a full novel if I wanted to put a lot of time into it. If I decide at this point that I really like this idea, there's 5 other questions that I like to answer down below, and I make sure to answer these questions every single time before I start any new project. Let's go over those 5 questions now. Number 1 is start with the end in mind. Number 2 is the climax of the story. Number 3 is the inciting incident of the story. Number 4 is the feeling that you want to evoke. And picking the point of view. We'll go over these one by one using the same example from above. Number 1, starting with the end in mind. Exactly what it says, work backwards. After the family of 3 is consumed by the cosmic being, their minds and bodies are all fused into one horrific super being with shared skills and knowledge. All 4 consciousnesses are tied together too, experiencing an ego death that allows them to put aside their misunderstandings to escape capture from the corrupt agency after the alien the family is now a part of. For the climax of that story, based off of that synopsis, think of what will be the most exciting part of the story. This would obviously be the moment that the evil agency is closing in on the alien and Kirby, in my opinion. When the parents are consumed, it would be a huge amount of fun to show their different skills and knowledge being used to evade capture and get them out of the increasingly intense situation. I don't know about you, I had a million ideas when I first came up with this idea and was kind of reading it back to myself. I just ended up with so many questions. I shared it with my fiance and she asked a lot of questions that were quite interesting that I didn't even think of as well. Sometimes sharing these one-page ideas with people is great because they can ask questions that you may not have even thought of, and it'll actually help you inform if you want to pursue this idea a little bit further. The inciting incident. What event kicks off the story prompting the events? For this story, the first thing that comes to mind for me would be an alien crash landing on Earth. The agency Deborah works for is attempting to cover up the crash with a story of a failed satellite decommissioning effort. This would allow the scattered brain Deborah to have information about the alien near her home being left out in some way that could prompt Kirby to go looking for the alien with his friends. I threw in a little bit of flavor. Deborah's scatterbrained. Now I'm getting a little bit of hint of personality and understanding what this character might be a little bit more. If I were to actually work on this story idea, I would go through a full character profile, which I'll probably make in another video, where I go over the basics and get into the weeds about who Deborah is as a person, and I would probably do that for every other major character in this story too. But for right now, you can see how this really helps you generate just ideas right off of the hop. Next is the feeling that you want to evoke. Choose the feeling and vibe of the story before getting started. This is really important because I don't know about you guys, but in my head, I was always thinking about this idea when I first started writing it as a dark comedy or something that was going to be a little bit humorous. But if I didn't tell any of you that, could you see this story being a cosmic horror or like more of a thriller? This could fit into a lot of different genres, and it could have a very different feel than what I intend, so it's better to control that by choosing from the very start what is the feeling that you want to evoke in people. This story could easily have horror aspects similar to that of Color Out of Space, but it could take inspiration from other media such as the recent movie Together, or the funny chaotic energy of Everything Everywhere All at Once. The feeling I want to evoke is something genuinely haunting, but also funny at times, and deeply emotional at others. After the story wraps, I'd want people to feel stunned and excited, and I want them to go and tell other people about this unhinged story that they just experienced. Picking the point of view. Whose perspective should the story be told from? If written, the story would be good in third-person limited POV, told from Deborah's POV, jumping to Kirby's at times before he's consumed by the alien. After the whole family is absorbed though, it would be really interesting to switch to a unique hive mind POV, using we, us, and they to really bend readers' minds. If filmed or animated, I feel the same POV ideas would work really well still, but it would be more removed from accessing the character's thoughts and more of a visual affair, more show-don't-tell storytelling. And that's it. Those 5 questions are the only things that you really need to know if you want to continue with this idea, or if you just want to leave it in the back burner until you run out of ideas, and then you can go through your Rolodex and pull something out of your whenever you need to. Lastly is the notes, for any ideas or questions generated from filling out this one page. A lot of these questions and ideas that I have written out here are things that I just came up with myself when I was filling out this one page. But when I shared this idea with my fiance, she actually asked a lot of really interesting questions that I didn't even think of. First note I wrote here is, Deborah could be the one who calls her ex to come get Kirby early. This could add tension to the dynamic when she is suddenly trying to turn her ex-husband away when he does arrive to pick up his son. How else could Kirby's friends be used within the story after reporting what's happened to their friend to Deborah? Could they maybe be trying to help her hide what has happened from Kirby's father? This is a question my fiance asked. What is the alien's motivation in the story? I hadn't even thought of this up until this point. And added a couple of extra points here. Is the alien empathetic and trying to help Kirby in the only way it knows how? Why would it want to help him if that was the case? Is its presence on Earth harmful to the planet in some other way that could give the agency a compelling motivation to capture it? What does the alien look like? Is the consumption process instant or more of a metamorphosis? What unique skills or abilities could the following characters have? And then I wrote the alien, Kirby, Deborah, her ex-husband. If they all combined and they're all sharing skills and unique knowledge to escape this situation, what could those unique skills and knowledge end up being eventually? And how could you utilize that knowledge in a really interesting or funny way in the story? How would the device that tracks the alien function? Could it be harmful to it or pose a unique weakness to it? Could it perhaps offer the family a hope of separating that they choose not to? Why would they choose to stay together if they had an option to separate? Could Deborah or Kirby have a pet that gets thrown into the mix in a funny comedic relief kind of way? Title ideas, you can absolutely see in context what's eating Kirby or family of one actually has a completely different meaning after we've gone over this page. But that's pretty much it. That's all I do is premise, thematic question, the protagonist's arc, a synopsis. And then I ask myself, start with the end in mind. What's the climax? What's the inciting incident? What's the feeling that you want to evoke in others? And what's the point of view? Then I give myself a bunch of different notes. It might take you an hour, it might take you an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. But let me know, do you have an idea that you think is worth pursuing? Fill out a 1-page and let me know if this video helped you. I would love to hear what your ideas are. Hell, I'd even love to help you work on the idea if you're struggling with it. Feel free to leave me a comment down below, and I hope that this video helps you with your next project. Thanks so much for watching. All four consciousnesses, all four consciousnesses, all four consciousnesses, all four consciousnesses, all four consciousnesses